radio show. Tomcat, call the ball. Tomcat ball, 6-0. Roger ball.
Hello and welcome to the F-14 Tomcat All Things Grumman radio show podcast. Straight out of Grumman, Calverton, where all 712 airframes were built. I'm your producer, my name's Lorenzo, and we got a great show lined up for you tonight, Episode 7. We have 3 outstanding guests. Our first guest is BM2 Rob Todd from the CV-66 USS America on the Catapult crew. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Second up, we have Lieutenant Commander Jeff Grap, call sign GRAPPER, VF-102 Diamondbacks.
Hey, happy to be here.
And also we have Lieutenant Commander Keith Casey II, call sign Smokehouse. Again, VF-102 Diamondbacks. Good evening,
Hey,
sir.
Lorenzo. How you doing?
Our host tonight, we have, as usual, your pilot host, and that's Gerald Leakey, call sign Leakster, VF-102 Diamondbacks.
Happy to be here.
And Siphon, Eric McMullen from the Tomcatters of Fighter Squadron 31.
Welcome all. Welcome.
Leakster, Siphon, it's in your hands.
Awesome. Well, I know we got a special maintainer guest here that Leakster is familiar with, so why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, Rob, it's been a long time. I mean, we spoke this week for the first time in about 30 years, and I loved hearing your stories. It's kind of interesting as a pilot. All the catapults, you know, Pat and I and GRAPPER, we've all had about 300 or 400 carrier launches and traps, and to actually talk to the guys that are down there launching us off the carrier, I can tell you that getting off that ship safely every time, we watch how hard the folks down there were working and how dangerous that job is. So it's really a pleasure to get a chance to say thank you and have you on here to tell us about your experience doing that.
Well, guys, it is my honor to be here and to be able to talk with you guys. You guys were always like superheroes without capes to me. And I was given a complete misnomer of what the pilot community was like. The more I spoke with people, the less idea that what they said was true to me. And the interaction with Leakster and the interaction with other guys too, you know, in and around the ship, just completely erased anything. I just didn't listen to anybody else after that, because my interaction with Leakster and how he treated me as an equal was absolutely pivotal in my Navy career and the things that I did from that point forward.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, that's pretty humbling. Thanks, Rob. And again, I watch how hard you guys work and how dangerous it was out there. I know. What years were you on the working on the flight deck?
I was originally I came in 90, but 91 I was with HS-11 as a rescue swimmer, and I did have a little bit of flight deck experience there, very limited. When I checked back into the America at the end of 91, I actually was flight deck observer qualified from 91 to 95.
Okay, so you got to see helicopters and every kind of airplane, right? We're talking E2s. Did you
everything? Yes, sir.
A7s or any of that kind of stuff while you were out there? But it was A6s and S3s and E2s and that kind of thing, right?
Correct. Everything. Every airframe on board. We didn't have A7s when I checked on board. It was all A6s, F-18s, Toms, all the different airframes. Pretty much those A7s were gone by the time I checked on board.
So when we were talking the other day, you said that the F-14 was unique in the way that you launched it off the ship. And I had never heard anybody say that before. What do you mean by that?
Oh, it was completely different because every other airframe, they either had a point in the launch in the, you know, as the nose strut of the Tomcat basically bows down. To me, it was like it bowed down in reverence to the cat, you know, to go in. And every other plane, you know, was easy. I mean, like the Hornet would just drop its launch bar and it would thud into the dustpan, while the Tomcat would kneel very elegantly and powerfully and just drop. I mean, you could hear a pin drop as that launch bar touched into the dustpan.
Mm.
And then as soon as the launch bar made contact with that, sometimes I was able to control the actual movement of the jet. Depends on the director that I was working with. Sometimes he'd work with me, but I would tell you guys, hey, kneel down, spread your wings, open flaps. If I was able to do all that, I had my own little sequence in order to make that work. But once the jet dropped into the NGL, that jet was mine. Everything I did from that point forward, they were looking at me and they were following my signals. So I took that extremely personally and professionally, and every time I did it, I wanted it to be better, smoother, quicker, faster. And it's better to die than it is to look bad.
Totally. I remember some of those guys. It sounds like maybe you were one of them that would kind of do. It almost looked like a dance, like a little choreography, kind of as you're going through this. Like
I looked like a total retard. So it was fun.
No, that's cool. I think that's one of the most special things about naval aviation is that little sequence of dance.
Yes.
So
that's right. Well, we had
a lot of folks. A lot of folks don't realize that when a jet comes up and it's attached to a catapult, there's a moment there where the airplane is put in what we call put in tension. And that's when the catapult is connected to the aircraft and it's armed and ready to fire. It's like a loaded gun and the safety is off. And as soon as somebody pushes a button, that thing is going to shoot the airplane. So there's a critical moment there where the pilot brings up the power to full power and does a control check. And while they're doing that, Rob, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're still sitting down there by the nose gear while that airplane is at full power. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so I don't think a lot of people can imagine what it's like to be only a couple feet from a fighter jet like an F-14 that's in full afterburner. But what was that like for you?
Well, number one, as the Tomcat comes and he kneels down and he's moving forward and he's beeline to the shuttle, you're already following the launch sequence according to NATOPS procedures, NAVAIR procedures, all these things. And then I have the guys that help me, the holdback operator or the wakeboard will come show the Rio. And then after that, all of it is central to the nose gear being connected to the shuttle properly. And it is a very intricate process. As soon as the holdback grabs the NGL hooks, it comes forward. The Tomcat comes forward and it'll get, now if you guys are armed with Sparrows or Sidewinders, they need to be armed. So I'll bring the jet up just to the top of the shuttle. Now, granted, the engines of the Tomcat were just like a primal scream that was so loud. I mean, and even with dual air protection and a cranial on, good God, it was like you were inside the intake. I mean, it was so loud. And so being able to, hand signals is 100% of everything where it was. And as soon as we walked up, I would look at those final checkers and make sure they saw me. And then I would lock eyes with them and then, get a thumbs up from them, let them know that they know that I know what they're doing. And then I would look at the director and lock eyes with him, same thing. Cato was kind of away from me from behind the radome, so he couldn't really see me. He can't see me until I get down into the nose gear. But as you brought it up onto the shuttle, the director would move every single. I had to be careful of my finger and my hand signals because that director was reacting to everything that I did. And as the jet is coming up, it's a very delicate moment. If you speed up too much or the pilot applied too much power and you went past the shuttle, that would destroy the whole launch sequence. And you'd have to either you do a pushback, which that takes about 200, 300 people to get that jet to move backwards. And even if it's an inch or two, it's that, or it's,
it's not like you can move the shuttle forward a couple inches, right? So
no. And because if you do that, your intention and the catapult's ready to shoot. It's like you had to fold your wings back. You'd have to go down, turn, taxi. It would just screw up the launch sequence. So it was a very delicate process, and there were certain spots, and I would use the F-14A had the black, the part of the launch bar was painted black. There was a reason for that, and that was for placement on the shuttle or watching as it went into tension, what the exact point of that launch bar was to be. You bring it up.
I didn't know that.
The
I didn't
shuttle
know it was painted black for that reason. See,
Yeah.
there you go. New piece of trivia in my brain.
And I would sometimes I'd focus on that launch bar so hard I would get tunnel vision. And as soon as it hit that position, then I would stop the director, and the ordies come in, do their thing, get behind the shot line, and tell everybody to hunker down. I don't know what the purpose of that was. Like, if a missile cooked off, you think that's going to help you, but it was procedure,
right?
So, and they'd give me the signal, return back to the jet, and then once again, I'm in charge of that. I'm in charge of the launch procedure at that point. And once again, lock eyes with the director, look at the final checkers, and they're still looking over the aircraft. I mean, even as every inch it moves forward, they're touching aileron, they're touching stabs, they're touching the wings. It's a last minute pre-check before you guys are airborne. And soon as that launch bar would drop over the throat of the shuttle, then it was my job, once again, get that. And there was a certain point, and it was that black paint on that launch bar where I knew exactly where the position of that was. As soon as that hit that point, I looked at deck edge, I looked at the catapult officer, I told the director to stop, and that bird was in my hands at that point. Everything that went from that point forward was my responsibility. So I would look back, once again, scan the deck, look at deck edge operator, look at your final checkers, JBD's locked, check the whole back. And then, as soon as I said everything was ready, I would look at the CATO, and that was his signal to put you guys in tension. Mm-hmm. And as soon as that happened, go ahead.
Okay, so now we're in tension, and as soon as we feel that as a pilot, you can actually feel it in the cockpit.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of the moment of truth, right? You're like, okay, now I need to jam the power up, right? And,
it's go time.
The officer would give us a signal to run the power up, and we would jam the throttles in the corner and start wiping out the controls and looking at our engine instruments. And outside, you're only a couple feet away from an engine at full power, a jet engine that's a big vacuum. It'll suck you right down. So what's that like?
What I used to do, Leakster, is there was a on the area on the launch where you would attach your tie down chains. I'd wrap my finger around that.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, okay, if that thing some reason if that engine grabs a hold of me, I've got a hold of the nose gear. I'm not going too far. Mm-hmm. So I would put my finger into that, and I would hold on to that as I was walking the bird forward. And soon as it went into tension, you guys would power up, and you think of all the thrust of the horsepower of that engine, spooling up behind you, and you guys were at full power. I was still underneath the bird, check and hold back, making sure the shuttle had you guys in a death grip, and there was no separation there.
Remind
so you guys
me,
were full power.
Leakster, you guys were in min burner on the A, is that right?
No, we would go to full zone 5.
Get to zone 5,
you would wipe it out and go to mill power, which is maximum, maximum power on the turbine without
on the dry, yeah.
And then, once you'd wipe out and you'd get a thumbs up, you're ready to go. Then the guy would give you zone 5, and then you'd come into zone 5.
So we're talking like, what is that? I forget what an A's thrust was in zone 5. Was that like 45K, something like that?
I think it was 17 aside.
Is that it? Okay. Gotcha. I forget the number. But anyway, so you got all that. And plus, of course, you got that amount of thrust that's essentially going to be coming out of the cat. So essentially, the nose gear has something like 85,000 and 90,000 pounds of thrust ready to give out the nose gear.
Of force on
yeah. And you're standing right next to it there, Rob. That's awesome.
I'm standing right next to it. There is no better feeling. You ever hear that's the most fun you'll have is your clothes on? That's right there with it. That's right there with skydiving. That's right there with a lot of intense things that I've gotten to do with in my life. But I'll tell you what, taking a Tomcat into tension was unlike, and it was different than other jets. I mean, Hornets. my big ass isn't squeezing through that intake. A Tomcat, you could fit 3 or 4 people through that thing.
So
And
when you bug out of there, right? At what point? So then your intention,
run.
full power check, and then you hustle out of the way, right?
Oh, I sprint, and there was a Nav Air technical manual that said make sure that you run down the nose and then at a 45-degree angle to get out of the engine vortex. Which, you know, I had a couple, I guess you could say, moments where I decided to. I was in a hurry. I went head up ass syndrome. I didn't think what I was doing, and I took a 45-degree angle, and I felt the pull of that vortex pulling me back to the jet. And I was able to get out of that before they did a suspend launch or anything like that. But with the Tomcat, you ran down the nose, and then as soon as you hit your 45, you put your thumbs up so the Cato could see you, and then he would signal the pilot, and you guys knew exactly what happened from there. I would retreat to the shot line, but I still full visual, everything, situational awareness. You know, I'm looking at the Cato, I'm looking at the final checkers, I'm looking at my JBD operator and how make sure the JBDs are good to go. I give a thumbs up. I usually, not everybody did this, but I would salute the pilot and sit there and wait with my thumb up in the air, or as soon as I did my salute, I'd wait until he was off the waist before I would drop my salute. It was just a final send off of, have a good flight. Thanks for giving me this life, and good to go.
So I think there's a lot of folks don't realize that every once in a while we don't launch because you have an engine failure or an engine issue, not necessarily an engine failure, but maybe a compressor stall or some other issue with the airplane, and they'll call for a suspend. And then we stay at full power. Even though they'll disarm the catapult, we were trained not to pull the power back on the airplane until the catapult officer would step in front of the wing line. You're sitting on a loaded weapon, a loaded gun, that catapult, and the airplane's at full power. You know you could go at any moment, and maybe you've got an issue with the airplane, and you're waiting for them to disarm the catapult. It's a really uncomfortable time. And then when they finally tell you, okay, the cat officer will walk in front of the airplane and give you pull his thumb back towards himself, saying, okay, you can bring the throttle back now. So that's a weird thing for you guys too, right? I mean, you're sitting there and all of a sudden we don't go.
Oh, that was a scary thing. You think of you're on the back end of a trigger that's getting ready to shoot, and nothing in your control will prevent that from happening. So you have a 60,000-pound airplane that is, and I was screaming at the top of its lungs, begging to be released from where it's at, and it's just a hair trigger. Wait, I mean, what if the launch valves failed or anything? Right. If the aircraft's not ready to fly.
So how old were you when you were doing this?
I was 21.
There you go.
21. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And
I was in E3, Leakster, in charge of a 15-man cat crew.
Yeah, on a $40 million airplane. It's all under your. You doing the right stuff.
His parents wouldn't even trust him with the car keys.
So, you mentioned that you one time you caused an airplane to go down, meaning mechanically broken so that it couldn't go flying. What happened then?
Oh, this is another idiot. I'm so dumb. There's a lot of training scenarios that you go through, and for some reason, there are some things that are left out. And some of the best lessons that are learned in blood, broken body parts, or anything like that. And those are the lessons that you go, you know what? I'm probably not ever going to do that again. We're in the Indian Ocean. It's about 120 degrees on deck. I mean, it's just hot. And it's probably an 8-9 cycle fly day, which you guys know is a very, very long day. Yeah. And I was leaning beside, I believe it was 206. It was a VF-33 Brand X jet. And we're sitting there waiting. I don't know if we're waiting for wind over deck. I don't know what we're waiting on, but I'm sitting beside the Tomcat, and I keep looking at the lights on the tower are still yellow. And I'm like, what in the hell? And I'm tired, haven't slept in about 2 days. And for some reason, even to this day, I do not know, and I did not know it at the time, but I reached up and I grabbed onto one of the probes on the side of the jet, and immediate heat seared into my glove, and I was like, oh my God, how do I get out of this? I tried to pull. My glove was glued to that probe.
Ooh.
So then I've got my gloves pulled tight so, they don't become thawed. So then I'm frantically, as it's burning my hand, trying to pull the strap on that glove. I finally got my hand out of there. And then the final checkers are looking at me like, what are you doing, idiot? And I was pointing to the jet. Well, my glove was glued to that probe.
Ouch.
And then
Pedo tube?
after we were sitting there that whole time, they had to down the jet.
Oh. Was this a Tomcat or what was it?
Tomcat.
Okay. So it's probably like the AOA probe that sticks out kind of a little lower?
The angle of attack probe. That thing is like a boiling plate.
All those sensors on the outside of the aircraft are either electrically heated or from bleed air, so they're pretty darn hot. I mean, it's like grabbing onto the inside of an oven, grabbing onto an iron pan. It's that hot.
Sounds like after sick bay you're going to be meeting the air boss.
I had to go up to the air boss. And say,
that's
he's
what
like,
I was thinking.
how stupid are you? I'm like, evidently really stupid, but I was never told this. This was never part of the training syllabus. Don't grab onto a probe.
Oh, well, funny.
Afterwards, you don't have to worry about that because you've already got a burned hand. I had 2nd-degree burns on my hand.
Can you still see the scar?
I still have a scar on my hand from that probe. So I am actually part of that jet, wherever it is.
That's razor blades probably now, but yeah.
So
sadly.
You got to do a high power turn. You told me you got sitting in an F-14 in Afterburner and that was.
Oh yeah, you guys. Oh, this is, and I told you about this, Leakster, but I was working. Every enlisted guy has to do his time down in the mess decks, scrubbing dishes, whatever. I was in the scullery, mess cranking. And there was you guys, everything about the F-14 enthralled me. So I had a friend of mine who was a PC, and he was like, yeah, I'm a plane captain. I'm like, are you serious? I was like, can I get your autograph? It was just cool knowing, that I had a chance to know one of these guys. And him and I got to be really good friends. And when we split, he went back to his line shack, and I went to the waist. He found me and you didn't have cell phones or anything back then, but he found me on ship. He goes, we're going to do a high powered turn on one of the jets on the back of the fantail. Would you? I was like, yes. And he goes, okay, well, we're going to do it at 2000. So, after final recovery, after everything's wrapped up. And I said, I'll be there. And I wasn't sure what we were doing. So I had to lie to my work center supervisor, my chief, and tell him I had to do this or I had to do that. I wasn't going to miss out on this opportunity. And sure enough, I walked back there. They've already got power up on the jet, and they haven't started the engine jet. So I'm waiting for the huffer to come over, and he goes, yeah, just climb up there. Well, I never climbed up on a jet yet. So, it's kind of like a newborn foal being born on ice skates all over the place. I didn't know what I was doing. And he showed me to climb up the ladder, put your foot down on the side. And I was like, I couldn't believe how high up you guys were. And you guys would climb that in full gear and jocked up. I was like, good Lord, I'm an idiot. I don't have anything on. I can barely get in this thing. And I remember him saying, don't touch anything. Don't move any dials. And here you're surrounded by, it's like a kid in a candy store thing. You got the Rio joystick in front of you. And it's just like, it's like winning the lottery. It's like being a dream come true, sitting in the back of that back seat. And the PC motions the huffer to come over, and they get the engine started. And I can't believe how loud it is inside the cockpit. Now, granted, the canopy was up, but still, I was thinking, good God, I wonder how. And I was hoping they were going to drop the canopy. That didn't happen. But the huffer came over, and they started, I think they started the starboard engine first and the port engine second. And each time, you could feel the bird vibrate, and you could feel it shake. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I don't know how long, it might have been 5 hours. I don't know. It seemed like 2 seconds to me. They finally started doing their procedures for checking out the high powered turn. And that guy was giving the signals, and I'm sitting there, and the jet is not moving at all. Right. And
It's,
I can't
it's like double chains all around, probably, right?
There's a logging chain that looks like it could hold down a,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a fleet
Mm-hmm.
that is on the front of that bird.
Chain is a big chain.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that jet's going anywhere. But as they bring power up to the jet, I mean, you can feel it pulling, and you can feel it like, release me from this. I'm not designed to be here. I'm designed to be in the air. But I don't know. I know you guys will tell me what it's like when you're in the jet and to feel it, to feel the pipes kick in like that. But when you were on deck, I was sitting there and I was watching the rearview mirror on the Rio, on the back of the Rio canopy frame, and then watching those two blue sky sticks come out of the back of that jet. And I was like, if I die right now, I'm happy. I'm good. That's all I need. It was amazing.
That's awesome. Real quick, though, we got two things I want to get through before we wrap up. One is, Leakster, we're going to turn you on to a secret you were unaware of. When you file for pre-flight for your aircraft weight for the tension, when you get on the catapult and they pull out that board with your aircraft weight, and you got to confirm, did you know that there was an extra 5 pounds on your aircraft weight board based on your camera gear? That they knew you had in the plane, but you didn't know that they knew that you had in the plane.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I know Grapper and I had a bad experience with that one day that I'll never forget.
Oh, wait. Are you the one? Are you the one?
Leisure was the one.
Someone's blaming someone. But no, seriously though. But before we get wrap up with Rob, something special I want to talk about actually. In your time from '98 to '05, when you were done shooting Tomcats, to say you went into the reserves, and something really special. You want to talk about that? It's pretty cool.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to go for Tomcat Rio, and because my eyes went to hell, mainly because of the flight deck. And thank you, Navy. But I went in and I did several of the NATOPS tests, and and they, at the time, Pensacola wasn't allowing any waivers at all. I mean, for nothing for this. And I'm like, well, crap. And then I had a good friend of mine who was at SEAL Team 4, and I had done some stuff with them as a rescue swimmer, as just a backup swimmer, basically a fanboy on the side of the boat saying, yeah, don't drown. But he's like, this is where you want to be. And I was like, well, this is really what I want to do. And then he was explaining to me everything, what their job was. So I said, you know what? I don't qualify to go be aircrew in the Tomcat. I think I'll go try and be a SEAL. So I dropped my package in 98. I actually took the test 17 times before I was accepted. And my SEAL recruiter was bound and determined to have me better than the rest because of my age. And it was going to be harder for me to get a BUDS package, which even back then it was very competitive.
Yeah.
So I went to BUDS my first time in 99, made it through Hell Week and got hurt. I had to have 3 different surgeries going back and forth to that training. But, it's just part of, that your chances of getting hurt are high. Your chances of getting killed are high. But at the same time, knowing what I got to do before and the flight deck and everything I did in those times, put it all together, that mindset was cemented, from working in the aviation community, that you set your mind to it. There is nothing that you cannot do. And, I got to operate with a couple SEAL teams in a support role, but everything that I got to do was really because of the guys, like Leakster, that gave me a chance, and I was able to talk to, and they were able to, pass what they had learned on to me. And then in turn, I've been able to do that same thing, pay it forward to kids who want to do something like that today.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, just even the desire to go to BUDS. For those who don't know, BUDS is Basic Underwater Demolition School. It's the SEAL training that goes on in San Diego, and it just that's the desire to do that and follow it through to the point where you get there. That's a gigantic step. And so obviously you had the attention to detail to be acceptable into that program in the first place. And like you say, it's by far not 100% success rate. And a lot of those cases, like you, are that no fault of their own. I mean, you certainly didn't want to get injured. So
I just wanted to throw it out there. How many catapult officers made it through Hell Week at Bud School? That's the kind of guy that was saluting you guys on the catapult, just to throw that out there.
That's pretty sweet.
That is pretty cool. Outstanding career, Rob. Absolutely awesome, and thank you for your service, sir. And it's just incredible. And
Yeah.
great memories.
It was my honor to be able to be with guys that you got on your podcast tonight. Those are the guys that made it. You looked up to them and said, you know what, if they can do it, then I can do it. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what that is. Whatever your vocation you're doing, you do it to the best of your possible ability that you have. And when you do that, nobody can really say anything about, what you did or how you did it, because you already know what you did.
Mm.
Rob, I think Lorenzo was getting at how we reconnected. Can you tell that real quick?
Well, I just, I've been going through some protocol with the VA, and they wanted me to write this thing down of everything traumatic that happened to me in the Navy. I was like, well, this is going to be a long story. So I started writing everything down, and then I started looking through pictures, and I saw those pictures that I actually got. I gave Leekster my camera in '93, and he took my camera up, and, trying to much less talk to an officer at that time, the protocol was a little bit different, about fraternization and stuff like that. But these guys I would scan pilots going down the passageways. If they weren't a Tomcat pilot, I'd just look away. But, I talked to Leekster and him, and he was so forthcoming and so cool and so, he treated me like an equal. And I thought, well, I don't deserve that, but okay. But being able to give him my camera and then him do what he did, I thought, you know what, I'm going to write this down. And then, so I was talking to Hey Joe, Dave Parsons, and he said, Rob, you need to put that on the Tomcat Association page. And I said, are you serious? He goes, you know how to write. So I said, well, okay. So I put all this stuff together, and all that stuff that you guys read is straight from memory. And I just remember,
awesome.
The experience with Leekster, and then the launch sequence experience. And then because of that, Casey's here. He's one of them that he said, hey, I know Leekster. I'm going to reach out to him. And there was probably I got 600 comments from that post.
Wow.
But I had numerous aircrew who knew Leekster, and they said, you know what, we're going to get you in touch with him. And so you guys invited me here, and
That's sweet.
that's it.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that is special, man. And it's absolutely awesome to have you aboard tonight. And, stay with us. It's going to be exciting. Speaking of exciting.
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled to be here. This, like I said, this is like winning the lottery. This is like a kid in a candy store sort of thing.
No, absolutely. Especially when you hear our next guest. He graduated officer candidate school in March of '87. He was winged in April of '88. VF 101, Rag Oceana, for a year before he arrived at Fighter Squadron 102, the Diamondbacks. From there, he would mold a young Leekster. And that's Jeff Grap.
Hardly.
Grapper.
Hey, Lorenzo, thanks so much for having me tonight. And Rob, great stories. So it's so great to catch up with guys from the America and Air Wing 1. But we had every bit of respect for you guys on the deck as much as you did for the air crew. You guys, in my mind, were nuts to be underneath that loaded gun, as you say, and with the Tomcat turning like that, sucking all that volume of air through the engines, and you guys would run around there every day like, that was just your job, just like flying the jets was our job. So thanks for sharing all those stories. It's it's a big team out there, and believe me, it's full of respect all the way around, regardless of rank or rate.
Absolutely, sir. It was amazing.
Well, Grapper, it's good to have another Rio on here.
I know. We got to try to keep up with these guys for sure.
You were actually about 10 years ahead of me in OCS, but then I didn't get my wings
thanks for
until
making
a
me
little later.
feel old. I appreciate it.
No. Tell you what, you guys were the guys that absolutely made me want to do what I did. I mean, it was awesome. It was, if you guys hadn't been doing it the right way, it would have been like, that kind of sucked. I don't really want to do that. But you guys made it really appealing, and it was pretty awesome. So coming out in the for you, and just right around the Top Gun time frame, in the movie, as in, and then actually you actually went to Top Gun, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I sure did. About halfway through my first tour there.
Mm-hmm. So you got to go full circle in that process. But I'm assuming you started your application for flight school and that kind of thing even before the movie came out, probably.
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah, I knew I was going to AOCS, at least. Maybe not flight school at that time. It's not guaranteed, but I knew I was going to AOCS before Tom Cruise hit the big screen. But certainly enjoyed it while it was out there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of, I think that was kind of, a lot of folks don't realize that because of the time period we flew in, they kind of assume that, oh, you signed up because of Top Gun. And I no, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people decided to do
500% increase.
But the group that Smokehouse and GRAPPER and I were in, we were actually already in the process of getting ready to go to Officer Candidate School, and we'd for the most part already been accepted or applied. So it hadn't had its chance to influence us because we were already going that way. And here's a little secret that we didn't talk about earlier. Jeff's brother was an F-14 pilot in VF 84. So we were all doing this stuff about at the same time, he and his brother.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, he can tell you that story, but it was flight school was a lot of fun. It was a lot more fun than working as an engineer. I did a summer between my sophomore and junior year, summer working for a Singer Purified up in New Jersey, where we grew up. And man, about 3 months of that was enough to make me realize I didn't want to sit in a cubicle and do that for a living. So that's when I started, working towards getting into AOCS and trying to do something in naval aviation. But he came down, and he was actually older than me, and came down to Pensacola while I was in flight school and hanging out on the beach. And back then, the classes were huge in flight school, so you didn't have an obligation every day like you guys did 10 years later. If you flew once a week, that was you
oh
were
wow
busy.
Oh wow, that's totally different.
Call the ensign on deck there on duty, and basically tell him, hey, this ensign Grap, I'm still alive. Anything on the schedule today? Nope. Call back tomorrow at 8:00. So you'd have the day off. So
wow.
My brother came down, spent some time with me, and he kind of thought the same thing. He's like, this is a heck of a lot more fun than what I'm doing now. So I think I'm going to try to get in the Navy. He was married at the time, went home and told his wife what he had planned, and they talked about it. And he was, even though he was older than me, he was about 2 years junior to me. So
that's full.
Never let him forget that.
Right. Salute your senior officer, bro. Hey, when you pin on JG when he's still an ensign. Yeah, seriously. So when you were going through flight school, I'm assuming, like all of us here, the Tomcat was out there. But I mean, had you considered possibilities of what had happened if you hadn't gone Tomcats?
Oh, I mean, that was the big thing everybody dreaded, because it didn't matter unless you were number one in the class. You had a good chance of being quality spread to anything else. And certainly Tomcats were the most desirable. A6s were after that, and everything else was and also ran. So luckily I did well in flight school and got to have my choice of airplanes. But yeah, I always wondered where else I might have ended up had I failed a flight or a test or something like that, and not ended up in Tomcats. And it was really cool because a lot of the fleet guys would fly into Pensacola, and while you're an NFO in training there, you kind of just, you see these big jets roll in, and you just wonder, like, who are these guys that get to do that? And then, little did you know, a year and a half later, you'd be doing the same thing. It's just, just a surreal thing to have come true for you.
Did you ever come back through Pensacola in a Tomcat someday?
Oh yeah.
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 Wasn't that a surreal feeling?
That was the best, always to go back.
Back to your roots.
I remember the first time I ever actually saw a Super Hornet, a brand new Super Hornet come through. I mean, it was like factory fresh. I mean, the paint was pristine white. It still smelled new. First time I ever saw one of those roll through on its way out of the factory, basically, I was like, this is an amazing piece of machinery.
Yeah, they should have left it there.
Well, I knew I was going to Tomcat, so I was pretty happy about that. But it was amazing to see something brand spanking new.
I bet
know
you.
You've seen the new Tomcats. I never saw a new Tomcat.
I've seen brand new Tomcats.
I saw really old Tomcats.
My whole life. But my point, though, is Tomcat 21 coming out the hangar brand new would have looked a lot nicer than your Super Hornet. And I'm sure all the listeners agree with that statement.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no question.
Totally.
But Grapper, I do got a question for you. So you're at the RAG now. You're out in 102, and you got a little bit of time going. And you look at the flight schedule, and you got this new guy, this J.O. in front of you, and it says this Jerry Leakster, and they need to carrier qual him around the boat. What's it like to take a new pilot and bring that to life for us? Someone that's never really, been out to the boat, and you got to get him through. You got to get him on that, that flight path, and get him lined up the back of the boat.
No, I mean,
without knowing that 20, 30 years later, this guy's going to be having his own radio show and with a super Tomcat host, APG-71 dude, so I mean, so don't feel,
right. No, I mean, but you got to remember, right? These guys they're carrier qual pilots, so they've been to the boat a few times, just maybe not in the Tomcat. And actually, they go to the Tomcat in the RAG. So, by the time they get to the fleet where I met them,
they got a few under their belt.
They're pretty well versed, but still at the same time, until you got 50, 100 traps under your belt, there's always things that can be missed. So we're just always, in the back seat, you're seeing everything, watching the whole sequence and just calling out, the pieces of information that the pilot may not be able to look at right away, or if anything you see unusual. But quite honestly, these guys, they got it down pat. And if they didn't, you either knew it or you never knew it, right? There was no in between. Either guys needed a lot of help or they needed no help. And I was fortunate enough to fly with Smokehouse, so we'll hear from him in a little bit, and Leaks. And some other guys who they were just aces all the time. They're fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, Grapper went, he and Smokehouse had done an entire deployment cycle, and they had gone over to the Med. They came back and they did Fallon, and Grapper got to go to Top Gun and all that stuff. So when I came to the squadron, he was a fairly salty junior officer, Rio. I mean, he was probably the best, Rio we had at the time.
Awesome.
And so I was a new guy, and we knew we were going to go to Iraq. So they, you're an unknown when you show up in that situation. So they gave me Grapper, and he got to fly around with me and
unknown. Is that FNG?
Right, total. And you're always a new guy, you're always going to be a new guy until the old guys leave, right? So that's just how it is, and flying with Grapper was a real pleasure, because he's always calm, he's always collected, he always had his act together, so there's a lot going on when you're a new guy and you're trying to breathe it all in, and it's overwhelming. So to have a Rio that can take the load off is really a huge help, especially when you're trying to land on the ship at night, which is really the most visibility you're going to get. You can go out there and throw bombs all over the place, or lose a dogfight in training, and nobody really cares that much. But if you can't land on the ship, then there's a serious issue, and that's where the rubber meets the road in carrier aviation.
Yeah, there's something to be said to that, because when you're feeling that hysteria you're talking about, he's probably feeling twice the hysteria, because he doesn't have any control. You have the controls, and for him, he still remains that calm, cool, collective voice to help you.
Yeah, and they're asking, hey, what do you want? Do you want me to read BSI? Do you want me to look at airspeed? Do you want me to do this? And you're a new pilot, and you don't even know what you want. You're trying to figure that out yourself. So you kind of experiment and figure out what's the best sugar calls you can get from the back seat. Maybe you don't want anything, to break your concentration. And we went through
verbally
all that,
trying to rub your shoulders, man, all the way
right.
and we had a couple adventures together. We had I remember one time we were trying to get aboard, and I had to dump a little bit of fuel. It was at night, and I forgot I had the dump switch on.
Oh,
it dumped everything down to the standpipe, which is about 4,000 pounds. And now we're on downwind with basically a trick or treat on the ball. And Jeff goes, "Yeah, okay, well, everybody's done that." No, they haven't. Both forgot to look at the bingo, right? And
Smokehouse
then, another time we we were carrying a tarps pod, and I hadn't been through tarp school, and I said, we're briefing it up, and I'm like, Grapper, what is there anything different we have to do with this tarps pod? He goes, nah, it's all the same stuff. I said, okay. So, well, you're supposed to be 3 degrees. You're supposed to be full nose down trim when you go off the Cat. Well, our normal trim off the Cat was 3 degrees nose up. So it was about 6 degrees off on the trim, which is a tremendous amount. And we went off the waist Cat, and that thing just stood on its tail. And we went, whoop, and then I rolled it, and, we flew away, and the captain of the ship comes up on the radio, leaky. Yes, sir. A little bit less Sierra Hotel next time, please.
Yeah.
That was my dad and Lee.
I forgot about that trim. Do you remember about that, Grapper? I don't remember the trim.
I don't remember it now, and I'm sure I didn't remember it then either.
Yeah, I learned that one the hard way. And,
no recollection of that.
And then the other one we had was we were doing a trap cat trap thing. It was a good deal because we were getting some extra traps. I was low on a trap count versus because I was an LSO or whatever, and we wanted to do a mill shot, and we went off the waist, and the guy had set the steam setting wrong, and we just went right down to the water.
Settled.
Little
settle.
We settled a lot. We're into ground effect and walked it on the water past the bow in the daytime, and both of us were like, "What happened?" And we couldn't figure it out. They just
Leakster, I remember that. That was you.
Yeah.
I remember that cat shot.
Oh wow, wow, that made an impression.
They claimed the boards and the gear was set correctly, but man, as soon as that catapult fired, you knew it was going to be a soft shot. But before I yelled burner, Leaks already had it up in burner. So
yeah, I jammed it up right away because I knew as soon as it fired, I was like, "This ain't right."
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember you guys going off the waist. I'm like, that ain't right. And then your tails disappeared from view. I was like, oh crap!
That's not supposed to happen.
I started running towards there, and then you could see you. I mean, every flight surface, it looked like it was moving on that Tomcat, and you were sitting right on top of the water.
Wow.
Yeah, well, we disappeared is what their plane captain said. He goes, you guys went away. We didn't see you. You dropped off the carrier. And it
do wheels get wet?
The pants off me.
No, they did not. No, I mean, but at the same, it was, yeah, obviously scary, but at the same time, I never felt like we were going to hit the water because you could, you had that, that
the feeling
out of the ship right there. You knew exactly how high or low you were above the deck. So, we settled out.
Well,
I said that we settled out at about 20 feet. So.
This will probably interest you guys. Do you know what caused that failure? A little tiny O-ring in what's called the CSV valve, which is what determines the speed of the launch valve's opening. A little tiny O-ring had been pinched in a maintenance operation, which reduced the hydraulic fluid flow, which changed the setting of the launch valve opening, which means instead of getting 45,000 PSI of steam hitting the back of that shuttle, you got about 15,000 pounds of steam.
Wow,
That'll do
wish
it.
we would have known that. It would have saved us a trip up to the boss.
Well, they were waiting for us in the ready room, and we were sure that we must have screwed it up, but we couldn't figure out what we messed up.
I
was so relieved that we didn't.
I remember that like it was yesterday. I'm like, God, I can't believe and the airmanship that Leakster had to do to keep that bird airborne. You really had to see that to appreciate just exactly what he did.
You said that was a trap cat trap. Was that the second cat?
No, it was the first
one.
Oh, the first one. Okay.
Yeah. And we were at landing weight when we shot off the catapult, so it was a weird setting for them. It wasn't an afterburner shot, which was weird for us.
Well, and we were right on that bubble, and we didn't want a mill shot, right? Because one mill shot, that's like a trap, right? That you're trading.
We didn't want to use the burners.
We didn't want to use the burner if you didn't have to.
Landing,
and legally we didn't have to, but we were right there on the bubble. But they originally boarded us for a mill shot or for a burner shot, and we were like, no, it's mill shot. So we thought there was some confusion there. But thanks, Rob, for 25 years later.
We never found that out. So let's bring Smoke into the conversation here. You're not going to believe some of his stories. We've had some chuckles together.
Yeah, exciting.
Yes,
Lieutenant Commander Keith Casey II, Smokehouse.
Yes, sir.
He graduated Officer Candidate School in 1985. He got winged in 87. Arrived at 102 Diamondbacks in '88. Incredible. I mean, it's great. It's like a Diamondback reunion. I love it.
Yes.
We do too.
How
Absolutely.
close were you guys to checking in the squadron? I mean, months?
Time-wise.
Yeah, I think we were really, really close.
Smokehouse, you were about like maybe 4 or 5 months ahead of me, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta tell you this, because I remember this like it was yesterday. It was my first day as a newbie at 102, and I walk in and they're having an all officers meeting right at the AOM. So I sit in the back, just a nobody. You think you know something coming out of the rag, and as soon as you walk down the halls of the fighter squadron, you realize you know nothing yet. And I walk in, I sit in the back of this meeting, and about halfway through it, the skipper stands up and pulls one of the pilot actually that I went through Top Gun with, pulls him up to the front of the room like a kindergartner. Like he and Smokehouse had been in the back just cutting up the whole time, making fun of the skipper and making fun of the OPSO and stuff. So had to separate them like little school children and pull the other guy.
Now, boys.
And I thought, all right, maybe this isn't so tough. I think I'm back in my my college fraternity.
That was exactly what I saw too. That happened many times. Smokehouse and this other guy were like these two kids cracking up, cackling in the back, and oh my God, it was never ending.
He was a bad
awesome.
influence on me.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah. I think we used to take turns on crews, seeing who could get put in hack first, and he always won. Yeah, it was never me. He was just a bad influence on me. I was trying to go to choir practice, and he would make me do these really bad things. Yeah.
So
yeah.
you go on this med deployment, both y'all, and then you did Fallon, and then I ended up joining the squadron, and then we're going off to Iraq. So kind of a first experience for all of us, but you guys are certainly more prepared for this adventure. So we get on the boat in January, just right at the end of December, I want to say, and we pull into the Red Sea on like January 15th, and the war kicks off, I think, on the 17th or something along those lines. Anyways, there's this night mission, and I remember, there's an A team, there's a B team, and there's a C team. I'm on the C team because I'm the new guy, right? GRAPPER is definitely on the A team because he's the Top Gun grad and the top of the line Rio guy. And Smokehouse is up there, and he gets launched up on his night mission, and all of us are on the sidelines kind of wondering what this is going to be like to get shot at for the first time. And I remember Smokehouse coming in the ready room preparing for his mission, and everybody prepares for combat for the first time in their own way. Their mental state is different, but I was super impressed with Smoke. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I had on my kamikaze headband.
Oh, I've seen a picture.
Japanese
I've seen a picture.
Headband on. That was awesome. And then.
Yeah, and then. Are you talking about when we got shot at, like that night?
Oh yeah, when I started talking, you were like, you were strutting around the ready room with this, Japanese combat headband on, and very, very, confidently making jokes, and hey man, we're going for it. This is gonna be awesome, and it was pretty motivating, to be honest with you, because everybody's like, you don't really know what to think of it, to be honest. Flying off a carrier at night is already scary enough, but then going into a combat situation that nobody knew what it was going to be like is equally intimidating, if not a lot more. And it was a lot of tanking and all this stuff. So GRAPPER, I remember you guys going off, you and Lester going out at night, and then you came back, and everybody's just excited. Everybody's in the ready room waiting for you guys after the night landing. Everybody wants to hear what was it like, what happened, and so they come down, and everybody's just got about adrenaline squirting out of their ears. Do you remember what you and your pilot had an exchange that I thought was pretty.
Oh, did you? Oh,
funny.
I don't remember that. You'll have to enlighten me. I remember the flight and coming back because we were supposed to be a flight of 2 and ended up just us out there alone and unafraid, as they say. But
Yeah, well, you guys were like kind of quickly debriefing. You're like, oh my god, and then this happened, and then the SAMs, and and you go, yeah, when that SAM launched or whatever, you said to him, you kind of freaked out and did that hard brake turn, and he looks at you and he goes, yeah, well, you were talking like a little girl or something in the back, and you look at him and you go, excuse me, it's my first war.
Oh yeah, sorry, it's my first war.
My first war.
Yeah.
My first.
How long were those first missions? Do you remember? Did you tank on those, or were they?
Oh yeah.
Oh
many
gosh.
times. Yeah.
Like
we
8
were
hours.
in the we actually flew from the Red Sea, and that was.
Oh, you guys were going that way.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it was everything. It was everything that you hated as a Navy pilot, because you did a night cat launch.
Yep.
And then it was a gaggle tank. You'd have like a 60 plane strike or something. So they had the tankers spaced 1,000 feet apart, a mile apart. So they were, you would have guys fly right through the circle and you would, there would be like 6 guys on one tanker. So the first guy would top off, and then he would go to the end of the line, and then the next guy would come. So you continually tanked right till you got to the border, and then you went and got shot at, and then you came home and tanked one more time, and then you got to go do a night trap. So, and they were like 8-hour missions, 7-8-hour missions.
Right.
Wow, you guys must have really been transiting at a low power setting then too to make that with just 2 tanks.
Yeah, it was brutal, because what they did was they used these KC-135s, and we would take off at night, and they were at pretty high altitude. I'm talking like 25,000 feet, which is, we would normally used to tanking in 10 to 15, right, or lower.
Oh,
and so
wow.
To hit a tanker at altitude in a fully loaded F-14A, a heavy bird, especially the one that was at the higher altitude, sometimes we'd be tanking up at 30,000. We'd have to be in and out of the afterburner on one of the engines just to stay plugged in. And when I talk about being a new guy, this is kind of the stuff that goes into that, and having somebody like GRAPPER that's with you when you fly this kind of mission is, my biggest fear was being the lowest common denominator, right? Which means I need to be able to get in the tanker and get my gas. And then I got to stay on somebody's wing while we get shot at.
Right.
And then I got to fly back to the tanker and get more gas and not mess that up. Then I got to fly back to the ship and get a night trap. So there's just there's this whole nother level. And like Smoke said, we're talking 5 to 7 hour missions, depending on how far north you would go. So, you're carrying, we didn't have piddle packs in those days. We had, they gave us a sponge in a Ziploc bag.
Ow.
And you're trying to carry as much water. Nobody knew what to carry, right? Because we haven't been to war in a long time. So you got guys packing Uzis and weird handguns, and they're putting as many, Band-Aids and stuff as they can in their G suit. And, I want to have this and an extra flashlight. And, we had, it was, nobody really knew what to do. So the missions were was a humongous, it's weird that I like to say this, but going to Desert Storm was a humongous training event for the U.S. military, to be honest with you. We learned a lot about comms. We found out that our comms were not compatible with the Air Force, for example.
Yep.
And all the comms changed after that. The radios were not compatible between different services. So we couldn't talk to the Army, and they couldn't talk to P3s, and it was a disaster on a comm standpoint. So a lot of things came out of that effort that most people don't know about.
Well, even just even getting the ATO, the air tasking order out, I understand that had to be flown out to the aircraft carrier each day.
That's a great point, Siphon, because I remember Smokehouse. This is something that very few people probably remember or recognize. But one of the things that he got to do, because I think because the skipper wanted to keep him out of trouble, to be honest with you, was he put him in charge of writing the flight schedule. So you had the OPSO, right, who, he kind of decides who's going to get crewed together, missions and all, the operations officer. But then he has a JO that works for him who actually sits down and writes this flight schedule.
And they're done that.
And Smokehouse got assigned this job, and the ATO wouldn't even get out to the ship till midnight or 1 in the morning. And I just remember him just bleeding out of his eyeballs, knowing that he has to do an alert the next day or whatever. And he's up in the middle of the night crunching out this flight schedule while the rest of us are trying to sleep, or do whatever. And that was a horrible job. I mean, he did a great job at it, but all of a sudden, 3 or 4 in the morning, this piece of paper would slide under your stateroom door, and that's when you'd find out what mission you were going to be on the next day. But Smoke was the guy who had to generate that. That was a hell of a job, Smoke.
Nice job.
Thank you, brother.
And of course, as the schizo, you always felt like you needed to take the really most crappy flight for yourself, right? Not always, but there's times when you're like,
no.
You did quite a bit, actually. You did that quite a bit.
Yeah, you do have to take one for the team occasionally.
You're too kind. Yeah, you guys are kind.
Did you?
Hey, by the way, I just want to put this. Yep. Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say before this goes on any further, everybody wanted to fly with Grapper. He was so stellar. He was the guy you wanted. It was scary when you would go on one of these big missions, right? And for the most part, the F-14s were the MiG sweep guys. We wanted to draw up those guys and get them to come after us so the bombers could go deliver their stuff. And if you had somebody in the back seat that was not good, not sharp, it was scary. And not only was it scary, but it was scary for your entire flight that you were leading, your division of airplanes that you were leading, because the lead Rio was, he drove the show. So everybody wanted Grapper in their back seat when we were doing that, and they didn't want anybody whose call sign might be head up in their back seat.
I would totally agree with that. And that's something that few people, the famous Rio. But I think everybody would agree with what Smoke is saying, is that basically you're always trying to build this situational awareness package in your head of what's happening outside the airplane, right? What is reality compared to what I'm thinking right now? There's sometimes a major difference in that. And having a Rio that can build that picture for you can really save the day. And having somebody that feeds you one piece of bad information can totally destroy what you think you know. You're like, oh, I have this picture in my head, and then they throw a bad piece of info at you, and it just collapses your mind because you're trying to sort out, is what I thought, So having a good Rio is all the difference in the world.
It was.
Not like the later days when we had, all your color displays, moving maps, all the JTIDs, all that stuff. We didn't have the luxury of any of that. If we had a transponder that worked, I think we're in good shape. You were clear to go.
There you go. Build the picture, set the expectations, get the information out, and go. That's what it's all about. We had a Rio in our sister squadron that they claimed he carried a can of SAB gone. and people would literally just on the radio, we'd jump off sometimes, if you're doing a sister squadron hop, when you're doing a hop with your other squadron, you choose whichever squadron common you want to be on, and someone would sometimes just come up on the other squadrons and just go, because you knew the guy was you knew exactly what that was about. SAB gone.
Yeah.
We actually did you guys have any problems with I suppose you probably didn't as much in this time frame, but the second time there were a decent number of call signs that had to be reviewed, because when they're written on the side of the plane, they didn't want CNN showing that combination of names, basically the call sign and the last name kind of thing, the joke call signs. Didn't have any problem with that?
No, we did not. We had a guy, his name was Aswipe, and it said Aswipe right out on the side of the airplane.
There you go.
A little French accent over the
Aswipe.
Nicely done.
So I want to transition a little bit. I got for both of you guys actually a question for both of you.
Wait, I got one more.
No. Okay. Yeah, sure.
We had one more. This guy in my second squadron, his call sign was Face, but it was spelled with 2 F's. I don't know what the first F stood for, but
Oh, yeah, I have no idea. Fancy, probably fancy.
Fancy face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Friendly.
Friendly
That
face.
face.
Just sometimes you've seen a friendly face.
so what were you saying, Siphon? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, so being in the same squadron, this might actually be the same answer for both of you. But thinking about like when you guys pulled into port, you know, the standard thing to do is set up your admin, set up your, you know, penthouse hotel room kind of thing for the squadron to hang out in. What was the best admin you guys ever had?
Probably Singapore, I think.
Oh yeah, I'd have to agree with that. That
Where
was
did
the
you
one
say?
where.
Can you explain some of the extracurriculars there, Pat?
Well, okay, so this, you know, another puke story, but it wasn't that the one where he came in at like 4 a.m. He had been out partying with the Chiefs, and he came in. We had a suite at the Ritz-Carlton in Singapore, and a good admin setup always entailed having a second backup setup in case you got kicked out of the first one too fast. And this was the case
Recovery
in Singapore. Exactly. And Puke came in and started pouring beer all over everybody's heads. We had a suite, and it had a bedroom, and it had the living room, and it was on the balcony. It was beautiful. And he came in and stirred the pot at about 4 a.m, and all the JOs revolted, and we got into a huge wrestling match with Puke. And our idea was we were going to tie him to a chair in his underwear and strip him down and put him in the chair in his underwear, put him in the elevator, and press every single button.
Oh no!
And press down.
Oh no!
And so the manager of the hotel comes up at about 7 a.m. and says, "Do you know this guy?"
Nope, never seen him before.
No, we don't know him. And there were broken plants, and there was furniture broken, and we had all started drinking again. And
He's
he
from
said, "You'll have to
VF84.
pay for this." And we said, "Okay." And then they asked us to leave.
Yeah. Singapore isn't really the place to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, they don't appreciate that.
You always
Isn't that where they give you like, you know, canings for gum on the sidewalk?
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely.
don't you always mention your sister squadron for identification when you're in trouble on a poor call? Yeah, VF84 Jolly Rogers. That's JOLLY.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. So, same for you, Grapper? Would you say Singapore?
Yeah, absolutely. It was. I think, is that where we had a little bout with one of the pilots there with a mustache that ended up coming off, or was it somewhere else?
Yes, yeah, I think that they might have gotten
been a
half of their
while since we-
mustache. Yeah, they had half of their mustache shaved off.
Ah.
I don't know who did it.
The semi-stash. It's a
Yeah.
real fashion trend now these days.
He was very angry when he woke up and realized that in his sleep he had shaved off half his mustache.
In his sleep. And he'd been working on it for quite a while. But
Ouch.
Yeah, he had been.
for whatever reason, it had to go that night.
Yeah.
Always a good
So,
time in port. It
Smoke,
didn't matter where it was.
you got any emergencies or near ejection stories or anything fun along those lines? The F-14 I found always gave all of us a few near-death experiences at some point.
You're not doing it right if not, right?
Yeah, I had one where I won't use his call sign because he's a great guy, but we were doing night strafing, and we were in combat spread, and his gun jammed, and so they taught you at the time to turn your switch off and then back to guns and see if it was straightrons and then pull the trigger again. And he did, but he hadn't selected guns. He had selected Sidewinder. And I had drift, he had pulled his power back when he was doing that because we had briefed we were going to be pulling out by 10,000 feet. And so he was behind me when he pulled the trigger and the Sidewinder came off. Yeah. And our recorder was running. It was kind of like Grapper's story about out at Top Gun. I think they used this at the RAG for a while for training because my Rio, who wound up later becoming an admiral, said, he started laughing. He says, "You're not going to believe what he just did." And then he started screaming, "He shot a missile, break, 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 break." And so the fellow in the other airplane starts screaming, "Break, break, break." So I broke and I came back on the power, and I pulled my nose way up high, and I started punching out flares. And at nighttime, that's just bright white light. It looks like it's coming right for you. I mean, it looked like it was going to hit me right between the eyes. And then the next thing you know, I mean, I was out of airspeed and out of everything, and the airplane just started toppling like a leaf on a tree. It was just, we departed controlled flight, and we were just tumbling end over end, end over end.
Oh,
at night, yeah,
wow.
at night. And so we bottomed out. So I'm going to give you the rest of the story at the very end, but we bottomed out with altimeter lag at about 1,500 feet above the ocean. And so we went up and we went to holding and turned on the autopilot. We skipped the next recovery because the adrenaline rush was just incredible. I mean, my entire body was shaking, my legs, everything. And so he landed minus one Sidewinder. And we
sure
came
the
back.
Orties were excited though when he landed.
Yeah, the Orties were like, yeah!
Yes!
Finally shot a Sidewinder
Yes!
at our wingman! Yes!
So we held for a while, and then we came back for the next recovery, and I just remember telling myself, the whole time, it's like, I'm not going around, and we're going to stop this first time. And so we did. We landed, and we caught the wire, caught a 3-wire, and then it was like an immediate, re-sensation of the adrenaline rush, because my whole body started shaking so much that I could not even put my feet on the rudder pedals to steer. So we told the boss that we had a hydraulic failure and we needed a tow. So they towed us out of the landing.
Human hydraulic failure.
Yeah. And so they towed us out of the landing area, and we sat there for like 5 or 10 minutes in the cockpit. And the plane captains are just standing there looking at us like, what the hell are you guys doing? And so we finally got out. But in the meantime, we were talking, and I said, why didn't you punch us out? And he said, because you said, I've got it. And I said, man, I never said I got it. And so we went downstairs and we played the tape. And from the moment he said break and the moment the airplane departed, all you hear is me saying, I got it. I got it. Yeah. So that's my scariest one. So then we got married later, and the public affairs officer thought it would be a great idea for a Dependence Day cruise. And so we got married on the center line. My wife, Kathy, and I got married on the center line of the USS America.
Did you invite the captain? That's what I want to know.
On the center line. I love it.
He hated me. Yeah. No, it was really cool. We had the Marines. We had 5,000 wedding guests because it was a Dependence Day cruise, right? So, there was the only thing we forgot to do was put a just married sign on the back of the USS America and some tin cans,
Oh, that would have been cool. Yeah, that's cool. But I've seen the photos. It was didn't it? It made the newspaper or something.
It did. Yeah, no, it did. It was really cool. It was really cool. Just, one of those memories.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
There was one more I was going to ask you, and now I'm spacing off.
Smokehousing off.
Okay. Exactly.
Oh, I know what it was. So tell us, the guys were mentioning earlier that you have kind of a big military family, Smoke. What's the deal there?
Yeah, well, so it was really cool. I was kind of drawn into this, although I was the only Navy guy. But my granddad was the son of an immigrant, and he graduated from high school when he was 16, lied about his age to get into West Point, and it was during World War I, so there was a 3-year commissioning program. So he graduated from West Point at 19, and during World War I, when you graduated from West Point, they gave you a captain rank. So he was a 19-year-old captain in the Army. He wound up making it to Major General, and he served on MacArthur's staff during World War II. And then my uncle, Hugh Boyd Casey, was actually got 3 Silver Stars, but 2 during World War II. And then his 3rd was posthumously awarded because he was killed in Korea. But they named Camp Casey in Korea after my uncle. And so then I came along, and the Army didn't have jets, so I wanted to go Navy. And then my son Adam became an Army Ranger, and then he got out of the Army and used his GI Bill, and now he's an Air Force pilot flying A-10s. And my daughter Sarah became a field artillery officer. She went Army also. So yeah, kind of 4 generations and still going.
How's that for a resume of service? Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. If you
Smoke,
really,
I was
I'm sorry.
Say, Smoke, I can't get past your grandfather lying about his credentials in the same sentence as West Point. Now, why is that so telling?
Yeah, you know what's yeah, exactly. Right now, especially, right? But really, if you guys get bored, research my granddad. He was an amazing guy, Major General Pat Casey. I mean, he did his doctoral thesis in German. He was stationed in Germany during the 1930s. When all that was going on. He's an amazing guy. So if you guys get bored, look up Major General Hugh John Pat Casey. Yeah, he's an incredible guy.
So while Grapper's sitting there in Pensacola and he's dying to get Tomcats, working his butt off, they must look at your resume and just point and go, Tomcats. Amazing, sir.
I was fortunate.
Yeah.
Just so blessed, really. Honestly, I mean, just it couldn't have worked out any better.
Right?
Yeah, it really could have. So many ways.
Yeah, I think that's how all of us have felt. To be fortunate, not just to have served in the military together, which is this brotherhood. We were talking, Smoke and I were talking. Yeah. What's amazing is he and I have probably not spoken to each other in 25, maybe even 30 years, and then we got on the phone chatting, and it felt like there's no time has passed at all.
None.
And that's how it is with most of our friends that we've served together with. It's awesome. That trust and friendship is always there, even when you're not living anywhere near the other person. You can count on them. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It is. Closest friends, even though it's been so many years.
Yeah.
I agree. And still, some of my closest friends that I see every day or frequently are Navy guys. So as well.
Same with you, Rob.
Oh, absolutely. It is the exact same thing. Listening to you guys' stories. I mean, it's just like you and I. I mean, you were like I said, Superman without a cape to me. And then 30 years later,
GRAPPER had a cape in his stateroom. He would wear that around sometimes.
I know there's a picture somewhere with you with a cape on.
I'm pretty sure I had. Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. I mean, 30 years later, we're talking to each other like, it was just yesterday. It's just, wow. It's kind of hard to, there's a couple times when Casey was talking, I was laughing so hard at your guys' stories. I'm surprised I even made it through all this, but.
So what are we missing, guys? Lorenzo, what else do you want to talk about? Anything on your agenda?
It's amazing to listen to your guys, the history you share tonight, and what the part that I really find that I think is very special is when I think of like the World War II guys in the Pacific Islands with the Navy, and when we talk Avenger, we talk Wildcat, we talk Hellcat, and the stories these guys must have had, the same way you guys do. Exactly. You guys went to war as well. You know what it is to, like you said, you mentioned about, that first night before, your first time going to war, and everyone has their own way of handling it. And it's amazing that we're blessed in 2021 to have a social media platform to bring this history alive to, the followers, to the world, to share this with them. I could only imagine the stories you would have gotten out of those guys off the Hornet, off the Intrepid, off of, I couldn't, we're blessed for the guys who are still alive, and they do share those stories, the old timers, and they paved the way for you guys, and you guys paved
I'm sure they had some good times in Singapore too.
Yeah. Yeah. But Lorenzo, to your point though, I mean, I think it really is truly amazing. Those guys, my dad was a side gunner in a B-24, World War II. And, throughout my entire time growing up, he never talked about it. And most of those World War II generation guys, that was just their duty. They did it. They came back and resumed normal life. And they never saw it as anything special other than the bond that they formed with their, with their friends that they served with. But, and I think a lot of that is similar to us too, right? You don't really tell stories except to each other. but it is nice to be able to share and let others listen in as well. But it's always great to get together with you guys.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Grapper, real quick, if you want to just go over with us, you did a test pilot school as well as strike aircraft test directive.
Yeah, that was a hoot. That was after flying with these guys in 102. I was lucky enough to be selected for test pilot school. And it's funny when I look back over my career, everybody hears that I went to Top Gun and they, oh, what was that? Everybody wants to know what Top Gun was like, but that was a short 6 weeks. Test pilot school was a full year of heavy duty academics and flying. And I tell you, I did pretty well through my naval career, as brief as it was. I did well in flight school, did well in 102, and then went to test pilot school. And right there, you feel very average as soon as you walk into test pilot school, because there's some really super smart guys. Yeah. That go to test pilot school. Most of our astronauts, I know a bunch of them. They're in my test pilot school class. But it was really just a fantastic year-long experience. It was literally 100-hour work weeks. I get to fly about 27 different aircraft. Everything from, they're at test pilot school. You had, T2s, A4s, T-38s, F-18s, H-60 Blackhawks, OH-6s. But I was probably one of the few that was able to fly the F-14, the F-15E, the F-16, the F-18, and the GR-1 Tornado between test pilot school and strike. So it's just a tremendous opportunity, but man, was it a lot of work, but also a lot of fun. But really, really smart guys that go through there and help develop some of these platforms and aircraft that the Navy enjoys today.
Sure. What model F-14s did you fly in the test pilot school?
We had A's and D's, so we had both. But so we had everything there. We just, it was, some of it was test bed, some of it was separation stuff. Like I was telling, I think Leaks asked earlier, I was fortunate enough to fly the Lantern when it was on the F-15E. So doing an evaluation for the F-14. I think they had probably already decided to buy it by then, but got to evaluate the Lantern pod, the Nighthawk pod, and the Tiled pod as a qualitative evaluation. And we also developed a helmet-mounted cueing system, which was the predecessor to what these guys fly, so they can, look at a target and slave the radar to where they're looking. So that was new for 1994. And then we also did obviously a lot of bomb separation testing, which was a really cool ride from the backseat. A little scary, but a really cool ride that qualified the F-14 to drop legally. So great stuff, though. Fantastic experience.
Yeah, outstanding.
Did you, when you were going through, you knew a bunch of the astronauts, of course, when you were going. Now, when looking back, there was a bunch of astronauts that were going through at the same time as you, right? Did those guys particularly stand out to you, or do you feel like they were just like every other military guy out there?
It was interesting because part of the test pilot school curriculum, you go down to NASA and spend some time down there, and you crawl all over the shuttle simulators, and the astronauts take you through and they entertain you while you're there. And the one thing that really struck me was just how normal those guys are. They're brilliant, but they were just like everybody else. And even the guys that got selected to be astronauts were just regular guys. They were smart, obviously, because they were there at test pilot school and they were accomplished and usually had some kind of pedigree from an academic institution. But other than that, they're just regular guys, like to have a good time. They just had an affinity for that. That was
my impression too. And it's funny because the guys that we flew with, many of them went on to be astronauts, and I'd be sitting at home and the shuttle flight or ISS is up there, and somebody is up there, and I'd say to my kids, when they were little, I'd be like, hey, look, see that guy right there up in space? He's a guy that I flew with in the Navy. And my kids would, I wanted them to think, hey, anybody can do this, right? So I'd say, look, there's a guy I flew with in the Navy, and my kids would always go, well, how come you're not an astronaut?
No doubt, right?
because
Questions kids ask.
that's a good question, because certainly all of us would have liked to have done that. So, it's one of those things like anything else that, the younger you are when you commit to something that you really want and go after it, the better chance you have of getting it, So I saw a lot of those guys, they were just like anybody else, but they were driven to go to get the right degrees, and they did well in flight school, and then they went on to get a master's degree, and they were just kind of checking the checklist to get the things that they needed to be in a position to be selected to be an astronaut. So
Yeah, I agree.
it's not all about luck. It's about creating an opportunity by checking those blocks.
Yeah, having passion for it and pursuing it. That's the biggest thing, right? Perseverance is 90% of the equation.
100%. 100%.
Oh, definitely true. Smokehouse, quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
VT-86 Pensacola. I mean,
Yeah.
That's you want to bring that to light?
Oh, well, that was a great deal. You got to go down there and do nothing but fly air combat maneuvers 3 times a day, or practice low-level flight or cross countries. And, you just, you didn't even have to give up the controls. You had guys like GRAPPER in the back, or guys that were wanting to be like GRAPPER. And, it was the best deal ever. It was the best deal ever. You go train guys like that. I mean, it was just it couldn't have been better. They paid me to do that. And to echo what these guys were just talking about, if I've always told my kids, and anybody that would listen, it's like, the way I ever got the idea that I wanted to be a fighter pilot, I was riding my bike through a neighborhood when I was a kid. I was like 8th grade or something. And I saw this man looking like he was working on an airplane in his garage. So, you have no inhibitions. I rode my bike up his driveway. Then I started talking with him, and he was building an airplane in his garage. He was building a BD-5J. It's like that little jet that was in the James Bond movie that flew under the hangar. And so he was a former P-51 pilot that had flown on D-Day over Normandy Beach. He had 2 air-to-air kills. And he kind of took me under his wing. He would take me out to the airports on Saturdays or Sundays. He was a Piedmont pilot. And just the nicest guy, the greatest mentor. And he instilled in me, it's like, yeah, you can do whatever you want to do. You can do whatever you want to do in this life. You just got to set your mind up to it and find something that you're passionate about. So then the very first time I ever saw some Tomcats, I was at Virginia Beach, and I saw these 2 Tomcats with their wings back side by side in section, just roaring over the beach, going to Oceana. And I thought to myself, those guys get paid to do that? That's what I want to do. So, I mean, it was just, you start working towards it, and you just do what it takes, and then you wind up there.
That's a great story. The first time for me, believe it or not, this was a kind of a funky one. I was getting my private pilot's license, and another friend of mine, we were teenagers, and another friend of mine was learning how to fly, and he said, "Oh, my dad was a B-25 guy, when in World War." And I was like, "Oh, I got to meet this guy, Well, I want to talk to this guy." And because I'd always thought the Doolittle raid was interesting, and I was like, I need to talk to your dad. So he invites me over to his house, and I go over there, and his dad was a great guy. And he and his dad were working on this airplane model. It was a huge plastic model. I mean, it was maybe 1.5 feet long, of an F-14. And they had just like putting the finishing touches on it. And they had this thing sitting on this craft table that they were building this model with. And I remember looking at this airplane and going, that is the coolest thing I have ever seen in my life. I just could not believe how beautiful that machine was. And I said, it's almost unimaginable, the guys that are, or the people that are lucky enough to fly that machine. So, a few years later when I got to fly it, I'll never forget that when this guy had this model sitting there, and I still to this day, it's like, that's such a pivotal moment in my brain of thinking how cool that airplane was.
Yeah.
Strange, but
yeah. Very cool.
The F-14A was long already a legend before the B and the D ever came out. And I stand by that. And that's the service of the maintainers and the air crews prior to the advancements of technology ever coming to the airframe, and outstanding, you know, the legend that it was created. And then Top Gun the movie obviously coming out, and you know,
Yeah.
the
Certainly
B
helps.
and the D was just the candles on the cake. The cake was already baked and served.
Final countdown.
Right. Final countdown. That was my watershed moment on the Tomcat.
Oh, no kidding.
Hmm.
Yeah, Rob saw that. He signed right up.
I did. Actually, no, I was 9 years old, so I was not going to be taken at that moment.
Oh.
Same thing. I went into, after Top Gun, I went into the recruiter's office the next day. I was 15. The guy's like, "Get out of here, loser. You're too young." And I'm like, "How old do I have to be?" He's like, 17. I was like, "See you in 2 years, buddy." And 2 years later, I was in the same chair.
Oh,
I'm impressed you walked in there at age 15.
Yeah, they just looked at you like you're stupid. You know, you got nothing else better to do. And he's like, "Can I help you?" I'm like, "I'm ready to join the Navy." He goes, "Yeah, in about 2 years." I'm like, "Roger that. You know, I'll see you in 2 years. If you're still here."
Yeah, historical naval aviation itself is just, it's historical. The same stories we hear today in 2021, and young kids that follow that their life is led towards aviation. You know,
Right.
it's what you guys did. It's the stories, it's the memories left behind that inspire them to, as you speak, you know, to, I mean, even growing up, I myself played with the little NASA LEM toys, and when Neil and Buzz walked on the moon, and, you know, it's just so inspirational, the people before you.
That's
And
right.
Each generation inspires the
Absolutely.
next.
Absolutely.
Well, you think of people like Leekster, who, you know, took time out of his busy day and took time out of his job to, you know, take the time to talk to somebody like me. And now it's my time to pay that forward and do the same thing to guys that are looking up to the things that I did. And I think of what it was like in those shoes. It's easy to transport that to the same thing, you know, being an instructor today, or, you know, helping out the younger generation, because I got to be with guys like Leekster and the other guys you have, Casey, all these guys they're just awesome people. And younger kids see that and they want to emulate that, and they need that today.
We were talking earlier, Rob and I, that, you know, he was mentioning that he knows that at Top Gun, you get all this kind of public speaking training, basically how to speak clearly and explain a message, right? And that a lot of folks don't realize that how much training in the military that people get on how to communicate, how to come up with a plan, how to communicate a plan, how to execute, and then how to debrief that plan. It seems very fundamental when you outline it like that, but when you're being taught it and when you're actually being debriefed on how you did with your plan and communicating it, you get better and better at it. And those are life skills that really carry on to other jobs. And
Absolutely.
So I think the military training is incredibly valuable for people that want to do all kinds of things. I mean, just doesn't.
I agree.
Yeah, so much more than the military aspect of it, right? That they are really life skills that you learn.
Life skills, for sure.
Yeah.
So, by the way, if you can stand up in front of a fighter-ready room, I remember my very, very first brief where they said, "Okay, you're the subject matter expert on the hydraulic system. You get up and you give the brief." So the CO and the XO are in the very first row, and you stand up there, and you know you're nervous, you're young, you're brand new to the squadron. And everybody behind the CO and the XO is holding pictures that they have drawn on their legal pads that say, "Shut up, sit down." They're drawing body parts, and you're trying not to laugh and give a brief. Like, if you can survive that, you can make it in the rest of the world, right?
Yeah, that's brutal.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the body parts that they drew were very special, by the way. I'm trying to keep this PG-13.
It's an unforgiving environment, that's for sure. Yes, you're total fodder for everyone's.
Yes, you are. Shut up. I remember the very first time I ever briefed, and they just said, "Oh, everybody's holding signs, shut up, sit down." This
Where
is
somebody
you. And
briefs,
yeah.
hey, we're all going to have wadded up paper, and right when the guy starts talking, we're all going to throw it simultaneously.
Yeah, it was just like Animal House.
That's hilarious. So, Lorenzo, you want to take us home here?
Yeah, absolutely. It is, you know, an honor tonight. It was special. Grapper, incredible career. Rob, the professionalism on the Catapult. And you saluted these guys was amazing. And for Casey, that family history, that is special, sir. That's something to be proud of, honestly. And a lot of people
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of people have a long family history, and yours is still alive and living, and that is incredible.
Thank you.
Welcome. Incredible night, sharing everything with everyone, and we thank you all, and absolutely awesome. Looking forward to the next show. Leekster, anyone want to close with anything, plug, say anything?
Hey, I'd just like to say thank you to you guys. Certainly, Rob, pleasure to get to know you here this evening a little bit, and didn't realize you were right there on the boat with me the whole time. But I knew it'd be somebody like Leekster to take care of you as he did. He's always been that kind of guy. But Leeks, thank you for bringing us in. And Smokehouse, always pleasure to connect with you and lifelong buddies. It's great to reminisce a little bit with you. And Lorenzo, thanks again for the opportunity.
I'd like to echo that also. It's just such an honor, honestly, to be here with you guys. I mean, I have so much respect for you guys. I don't feel like I belong, but I'm grateful.
That's very humbling. I'm looking forward to finishing this conversation with all of you over a cold one sooner rather than later.
Yes, sir.
'Cause I know that's when the good stories are going to come out.
That's right.
We don't have to keep them PG-13.
Pick a date, Leeks. We'll be there.
We'll be there.
Well, you guys, I echo that sentiment exactly too. It is such an honor to be here, and for Leekster to invite me on here and listen to your guys' stories, and just the ability to come on and be associated with guys like you. I think it's just an amazing thing, and I really appreciate you guys' time and letting me be a part of it. My stomach hurts from laughing, so it's all good.
Thanks for keeping us alive.
It's all
Rob.
good.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Good night, guys.
Take care.